it comes again?
As I told you, the Iranian government will study the statement and will make its positions known. But the point that I wanted to make is that Iran does not respond well to threats or to deadlines. Iran has always been prepared to reach a negotiated agreement whereby the concerns of the international community or those countries who claim to represent the international community would be met, so that Iran's nuclear program creates no concern that it's for anything other than exclusively peaceful purposes.
So how is Iran prepared to react to this new threat that you can already envision?
Well, we are committed to our rights. At the same time, we are committed to resolving this issue peacefully. Yes, ma'am.
So
yes, sir.
Now that this statement has been adopted, do you see any shade and light in the way the Americans are interpreting it as opposed to the way the Chinese are interpreting it? And a second question, if I may, it's obvious that Washington has made a strategic decision not to let Iran develop a nuclear program. It's also clear that Iran has also made a strategic decision to go ahead with developing a nuclear program. How confident are you that either sanctions or military action are not inevitable?
Well, we hope that reason will prevail and serious consideration of the consequences of adventurism for the region and for the future of the non-proliferation regime would be seriously considered. It is important to understand that the United States has drawn red lines in the past. 2 years ago, our Bushehr reactor was the red line. Today it's something else. Tomorrow it may change. So Iran is committed to its obligations not to move in the direction of diversion. We have shown that commitment. We will continue to abide by that commitment because we consider it not only our legal obligation, but our strategic interest.
The difference between the interpretation between the Chinese and the Americans?
I have not seen the difference between the interpretation, and it's too early to discuss that yet. Yes, sir.
Two questions. First, can you give us your reaction to the fact that Russia and China signed on to the statement? Are you disappointed by that? And second, you were talking about the NPT. Is Iran considering pulling out of the NPT if it's just obligations and no rewards?
No, we have made it very clear that we are committed to the NPT. It's the future of international regimes in general that will be in question if being a member does not have the benefits that are associated with being a member. I believe this does not augur well for international regimes, not just the NPT, but it's sending the wrong signal that by staying out, you have more benefits than by joining. And I think that is an absolutely dangerous precedent from a purely international law, if people believe in international law, some don't, I know, and from the perspective of non-proliferation in particular. As to your first question, we know that China and Russia did their very best, and we are thankful for the efforts that they, along with the non-aligned members of the Security Council, exerted on our behalf. Yes, sir. Yeah, you and then you.
Can you, or how can you reassure Americans, for example, who have heard so much about the alleged effort to build a nuclear bomb? How can you assure them that that is not what your country is doing, considering the fact some papers have found these supposed warheads and other designs that could have military applications?
Well, you see, if I want to tell you in legalese, proof of a negative fact is impossible. What we could do was to cooperate with the IAEA, to allow the IAEA to investigate all these baseless allegations, and time and again, you know the hype that was created that Iran had HEU, high enriched uranium. You remember, I mean, I can bring you the statements that were made that existence of high enriched uranium in Iran meant that Iran was developing bomb-grade uranium. We said from the very beginning that the source of that high enriched uranium was in the outside. You needed to look seriously. After the IAEA looked seriously enough, it found that our statement was correct, and it has stated them. I believe every allegation that is investigated, and I think there should be a limit to baseless allegations, but once allegations are investigated, and we have been in the past, ready to go the extra mile with the IAEA in order to allow it to investigate every single allegation against us. And we have done extremely well in cooperating with the IAEA in the past 2 years, since 2003, because we were hoping that a new chapter could start. Now, it has to be understood that for 27 years, Iran has been denied its rights. Every time that we wanted to implement our rights, not only to nuclear technology, but in every other field, the United States made sure that there were obstacles in that area. The other side of denial is discreteness. But the causal effect between denial and discreteness must be removed. Iran thought that by starting the negotiations with the EU3, we were putting an end to the denials so that Iran could be transparent. For 2.5 years, we have shown our transparency. We have allowed the IAEA to investigate. The IAEA is on record that Iran has taken corrective measures with regard to its past failures, and the IAEA knows much more about the Iranian program. But then it is interesting that a sentence is taken out of context from 2 reports of the Director General, although he says in the very next sentence that this very same conclusion can be applied to many countries, including some members of the board, and have used them in order to show that the Security Council must get involved. This is, in fact, and if you read the reports over the past 1 week, you heard that there was a briefing by the IAEA for the permanent members. And then you heard that a senior American official said that the IAEA was super sensitive about this, and then a senior IAEA official reported that this type of statement by the United States shows that they are more interested in a crisis than in a resolution. I think that has been the case all along, and the more investigation that is done, the more this statement becomes the case and be proven. Yes, sir.
What is your sense? Will this statement be rejected by the government of Iran?
I cannot predict the reaction of the government of Iran at this stage. It is midnight in Iran. The statement, as you know, there have been frantic negotiations over the last 1.5 days, and there have been changes and changes over and over again, and the statement in its final form was prepared almost after midnight in Iran. So we have to wait till tomorrow for Tehran to make an official comment on that.
Ambassador?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that Iran can do anything right in the eyes of the Permanent Five, and mainly the United States? No matter what you do, do you think you can satisfy their demands?
Well, I think it's up to them. It's up to the United States to decide whether it wants to see objective, serious assurances that Iran's nuclear program is exclusively for peaceful purposes, or whether the United States wants to use this as an instrument of threat. And I should remind you that if the Security Council wanted to deal with an issue that was on its agenda, should have been on its agenda, was to deal with the daily threats by the United States and by Israel to use force. I'm not talking about vague threats. I'm talking about threats of use of force in violation of Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the Charter of the United Nations, which makes it a responsibility of the Security Council to deal with these issues. We have brought them before the Security Council. We have informed the Security Council of them. And I believe instead of providing pseudo foundations for these threats, the Security Council must deal with these threats.